thank you very much for all of you that have joined us today. My name is Saqib Razzaq, and welcome to the Colourful Heritage Part 2 of our weekly 4-part series called Herstory. So in this series, I'll be having a conversation with a number of inspirational Scottish South Asian women and taking a closer look at into their lives. And I want to be looking to find out more about their personal and their career journey. And at the same time, I want to ask them to share some of their pearls of wisdom, some of their experiences, some of their knowledge, so that the rest of us can learn from this as well. So in part 2, I would like to introduce my guest this week, called Mrs. Brij Gandhi. Brij's parents migrated from India to Mombasa in Kenya in the late 1930s. And Brij was born in Mombasa actually in 1939 and grew up and played amongst people of various faiths. You know, she had a really good network of people around her. And after she got married, she moved to Nairobi. And soon after having children, she decided to migrate from Kenya to Scotland. And what started as a volunteering role for her for many years led to Brij working and eventually becoming a manager of the Meridian Centre, which was a first of its kind, a women's only resource centre in Glasgow. She's been instrumental in setting up projects around the city relating to various interfaith work with schools and to promote multiculturalism, challenge prejudice, and allowing ethnic minority women their full potential in promoting women's issues and empowering and enhancing their skills. She's also been very instrumental in promoting racial equality and to support her volunteering and expertise through elderly and women's projects to date, which I know that Auntie still continues to this day. Auntie Brij still lives in Glasgow. So good afternoon, Auntie Brij. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Thank you for joining us, and welcome to our series today. And also thank you for taking part in this conversation and agreeing to share your unique experience, you know, and your sort of story with everyone that's joined us today. I'd like to start, first of all, by asking you to describe your childhood in Kenya for me, because I think this really sets the scene for your work moving forward. So tell me, what was it like being in Kenya?
My childhood was very, very nice. It was like not a very secured one. It was an open childhood. You could go anywhere, play anywhere. There were trees, mango trees, orange trees, banana trees. We could go into the farms because there were farms right next to our houses. And the people around, the neighbors were all like brothers and sisters. There was no, barriers that we couldn't meet boys and girls. And since I was in a convent school, we had no problem of speaking English. And the language, Swahili language, which is a local language, we learned that very fast. And as you said, there were no barriers for girls and boys. We had co-education. But as I grew up, I was put in a school where there were only girls' school. My secondary education was in girls' school. Then from there, I went to do teachers training. Then I taught in a primary school. And for us, childhood was like from going one house to another house, going and eating in one friend's house to another friend's house, and exchanging our clothes. That time the clothes were very simple. It was just, there was not so much fashion though, but we were contented with what we had. And parents were not very rich. They could afford and give us every day or every week a new to wear new things, and we were sharing also things.
Okay.
My shoes and all that, my younger brothers and sisters, my sisters used that. And likewise, we were sharing our friends' things also, like books and pencils and pens. We to share each other's stuff.
So
and I think that sharing was, which I have brought into that sharing, which I've learned, the sharing had been an important part of my life when I was young.
So I guess it was a real sort of sense of community, real sense of sort of brotherhood, sisterhood, you know, with the other faiths of people that were around you. You know, I guess where you were staying, there was people of many various different religions and backgrounds. Is that right?
That's right, yes. The best thing was to share and to celebrate in events like Diwali, Eid, Sikh Gurupurb, and Christianity, the Christmas, they were all together. We never knew which festival was whose. So it was all mingling up together and doing things together because the parents were doing it. There was no barriers with the parents. So we grew in that kind of society where there were no barriers at all.
So when you got married, you moved to Nairobi, and after that, soon after that, you know, you've had children. Your children are growing up. You're settled in Nairobi. Why then did you decide to leave Kenya then? Because you told me yourself that you were a lady of leisure when when you were in Nairobi. You had a beautiful house. You had lots of people that were working with you. You had friends. Obviously, you've probably got family there. So why would you decide to then leave Kenya and move to Glasgow in 1984?
I know when I look back, it's a very hard question, but I
Mhm.
tell you why I leave because my husband studied here in London. And
Okay.
when I got married, his idea was that I want my children to go abroad to learn. And moreover, my parents moved to Glasgow. So there was another leeway where I could come and bring my children and stay here. I've never thought of living in London, but always thought of living in Glasgow. So as my parents were here, it was a big, very hard decision to make because I was like lady of leisure. Things were done for me and used to go from one place to another. Used to do some projects with women, thing. And that thing has been with me because my mother used to do that, helping out the older people. So when I decided I want to move to Glasgow with my children, because we had sent them here, my parents were here, my brothers, sisters were here. So I moved, my first son came early when he was only 12, living with my parents. And then
Okay.
slowly I sent my other son. As for my husband, he used to come to London often with his work. He was working in Shell, Kenya Shell Oil. So he used to visit London office. So we decided for him, rather coming every now and then, why don't we leave our children here and have a best education? It's not that education there was not good, it was good. But since my parents were here and we felt in love with Glasgow and all that, and my sister was there who's so we decided, me and my husband and I decided to give our children education here in Glasgow.
So I know that when you moved here, and even before you moved, well, when you were visiting your parents who had finally moved to Glasgow anyway, and then you were coming and visiting them. I know during that time you told me you started working at the Church of Scotland's university flat, and what started with sort of discussions and tea and meetings with other people, getting to know people, talking about, your faith and talking about, life in Kenya. I know that you were working with a whole lot of different people, including sort of parents who were coming to this meeting as well. And eventually, you were offered a job from the Church of Scotland and working with the Strathclyde Regional Council, I believe you told me. So you used to invite some of the mums to a social circle, discuss issues around discuss issues that they had around about that time in the sort of Hillhead area. Why then did you start to volunteer and eventually start working in Glasgow when you were here? Why did you do that?
When I was here, I used to come for a short period and all that, and I had sent my other younger son also here. So what was happening? There was a Church of Scotland flat where women used to go and get socialized. It was all Christian women, all Scottish women, some were English women and all that, because this flat was Church of Scotland flat. And my mother used to go there. So slowly I started going with my mother. And the person name was Stella Ricky. He was a nun and she had worked in Pakistan for 18, 19 years. So she had that idea of getting women together because that time it was very difficult. Women couldn't speak English and it was difficult for them to take their children to school because of the weather, because of the language. And slowly I started volunteering them there. When I used to come, I volunteered. And it was the idea of Stella and myself, why don't we have women here only during the day when the children go to school and all that, because I could speak many languages. I can still speak many languages and write too. That was a very good thing in myself that I was proud of that time. So I collected information going house to house when I was here on voluntary basis, get myself known to them that I have come here and we want to organize something for women during the day when children are away, and wanted to help them to go and buy uniforms, get benefits. That time there were child benefit and all that. I didn't know myself. So all these things were I was slowly finding out, help of Stella Riki and with the social work department. And that time it was regional council department. It was not city council, it was regional council of Strathclyde.
That's
Strathclyde
right.
Regional Council, it was called.
Mm.
So slowly I had my volunteering from 2-3 hours to like 4, 5, 6 hours. Children were very lucky. They had place in Hillhead School, very near I was in Hillhead. I was living in Hillhead with not with my parents. I had a flat above my parents where they were living in a close in Hillhead. So slowly I was working. And then when I was going back home, I was missing my children all the time. I wanted to be with them. And when I came here, I used to miss my husband, but it was not so bad. He used to come every 2 months or what. So we decided to come here. And then slowly, because I was so known in the community around in the West End, slowly we built up a relationship in the international flat to have women's group. Like we started from cooking international dishes,
Of
speaking
course.
the language. It's not speaking just English. We used to speaking Swahili. There were 1 or 2 African women from Kenya, because there were students who used to use the flat more than our people. So Urdu were spoken there, Hindi was spoken there, Punjabi was spoken. So it was a cult of women who used to come there, and they used to love it. Slowly we built on that. And one day Stella Riki said, she was very ill during that time when I decided to move here. She was very, very ill. And then she must have put application in Strathclyde Council, and there was job going. When I came, I applied for the job. And my interview, first time I just got the job. I don't know why, because of the language, because I've known the people around, and I think everything counted there. So I was
Yeah.
lucky to get a job. I worked there like 12 years.
Okay.
You know,
So that's what I
I was
wanted
called a
to.
community worker. There,
Yeah.
I actually developed so many things in
Mhm.
that international flat.
Yeah.
There were a
Because
women's group.
I think you were doing so that brings me on to my sort of next kind of question that I wanted to ask you. You obviously gained a lot of skills because you knew people in the community, and you possessed a lot of you're multilingual. You know, you could not just read but write and speak various languages, you know, and of course round about the West End is where there'd be lots of students from different parts of the country coming, from different parts of the world coming to study. So I guess those kind of skills would have helped you with your employment. But why, in your opinion, do you think volunteering is very important? You know, and I'd like for our audience listening that to find out, you know, that before you're taking on a job, why is it important to volunteer somewhere?
First of all, that time I have no notion of working here, no notion of staying here. But once I decided I wanted to stay here with my family, that time I felt volunteer was very important. Unless you don't volunteer and get to know people around you, get to know the society, get to know the climate, because I wasn't climatized. From where I'm coming, it was really hot and pleasant days. But here the weather was very bad. It was tough for me. It was cloudy. It used to rain. It used even rain now all the time. Like today, it's raining heavily,
Yeah,
and there was
Scottish
snow, which I
weather.
had never seen in my life. Walk in the snow, and the fog was so much. So to climatize myself, I had to volunteer, and I didn't need a job that time because my husband was sending money from there. He was working. He was good uh, post. So I didn't want to work. So I wanted to have fun with my family, with my sons, and be part of their life while they were going to school and come back. But when I saw the flat was doing so much and I developed so much, so I started volunteer. Really, complete volunteering means from Monday to Sunday.
Okay.
You know, going out to guilds, talking about the project, talking about my lifestyle in Kenya, talking about the faiths, talking about different faiths. I used to organize people from different faiths to go around in guilds, women especially go around because the women's guild that time, go
Mhm.
around and speak about their faith. So there were a lot of women coming out to come with me. The barrier was the only English was barrier for them. So I had to accompany them. I could drive. So I know I had gone as far as Ayr, Edinburgh, Helensburgh, I don't know where, I've forgotten all those places. So my volunteer has made me into what I'm today. If I hadn't volunteered, don't think I would have done what I did.
Yeah. I guess that would have helped you also to, because you had those skills, you were able to drive, speak the language, you were able to then go out and mix with the wider community and integrate and just find your bearings around, especially when you move to a new place, you know. So that's really good. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Saqib, it was very difficult because I was not accepted first. Believe me or not. Yes, there was a lot of barriers there. Used to walk down the street. People used to, make faces and call I don't want to use those words, but at work was also, because when I used to go to the meetings and all that, social work meetings and all that, people used to think, the staff used to think, oh, this is a person who is a black person. She might not know anything, but they were all wrong, because inside me, I knew what I was doing. And you learn every day. It's not that you were born with skills and all that. You learn those skills. Unless you don't volunteer, you will not be able to do things right. I'm not always right. I've not been right all the time. But unless you don't volunteer and look at other people in a positive way, you can never take their skills.
And did you, when you first moved here, you mentioned that, you'd walk down the street and, somebody would pull a face, or you felt sort of negativity. Do you remember any sort of incidents of racism then at all that you might have faced, which is why you maybe you need to
there had been
speak
a
up?
lot, but one incident I can't even forget up till today. What was that? I was working that in Meridian, a women's center, and I had given my card for a service. When I went to get my car, I was ignored at the station. And then I asked twice or three times to the manager. I said, my car is ready. I want to go. I'm getting late. I have to go to the meeting. I was spoken very rudely, and the keys were thrown to me because I had paid everything beforehand and was just about to pick the car, and was very upset, looking at it, and tears in my. I said, this is not the way they should be speaking to somebody, a customer like that, and especially a woman. And the police station was next door, Meridian police station. I don't know how I built the courage. I went there, tears in my eye. I went there. I said, this is what has happened. And I had put down, and I had been spoken very badly. And that is the only thing. I have put that behind me. I don't want to remember it, but that was a bad experience. And after that, I think I made my way. I made myself very clear. I'm a woman. I have to stand for myself, build your confidence, madam, and go up in the world and do things. This thing are immaterial little things.
Yeah. And I guess, what I would like to ask you actually is that how do you feel then that youngsters nowadays, or should deal with, if they're ever faced with something as challenging as this? How do you think the younger generation should deal with this?
Saqib, it is very hard to, because every situation is different.
Yeah.
And I would advise the young people, they are really some of them are negative. I won't say all of them. Lots of them are negative because of the situation in the world, because of the jobs and all. Beforehand, they think of their future. Oh, I'm not going to get a job when I'm studying, and I don't want to study, or things like that. But then what it is, if it happens to like this, I think the young person should walk away and not shout and scream to the person or to the people who are attacking him, or making the life difficult for that person. If you're cool and calm, walk away and then think properly what had happened. If it has not been your fault, you should report it. You must report it. I know there is so much help now. Before, there was no help before. And there were people who were frightened to go to the police or to get help. But there is a lot of help around. And I think you should not even sit back and say, I'm not going for help. You should go for it. Talk to somebody.
Yeah. So that brings me on to my sort of next point and question, that, obviously in those days, there was around about 1993, the idea started to bubble up about having a women's only centre, an education resource centre. And that's where I think the idea for Meridian, which was a Black and ethnic minority women's resource centre and information centre, developed, and obviously eventually it became official. So tell me a little bit more about what Meridian Centre is, because we don't have it anymore. So I'd like to know, what was it?
This idea came from the International Flat, and with a lot of people involved in this, especially the women. They were all women from Black and ethnic minority women. The women who used to work, when I started working and all that here in Glasgow, that time there were hardly people who were working, women who were working in sectors. Now there were women in city council, there were women in education who were teachers and all that. And we were meeting together time to time at International Flat, women from all walks of life, because it was a student flat. And the idea came from there that we should have a women's center where, because women were meeting at International Flat in the afternoons, and we wanted a center only for women from all the communities. It was not one based community, from all the communities, from all walks of life, and all the women who were working or not working. It should have been a center for women who wanted to learn, to get employment. By that time, employment was very high and people wanted to work and they couldn't afford. Women wanted to work, they were working in factories and things like that. And a lot of us decided, we were about 10 of us, then we were 8 of us, people used to join in. And then we had a meeting with the City Council, Strathclyde Regional Council, that social work department, education department, and this idea had been greatly appreciated and taken by them. So slowly we took 4 years to build Meridian.
Yeah,
because the
I guess
Strathclyde funding came from European funding, the other fundings, and slowly we moved into a center for women, which was excellent center only for women, and it's only one in Scotland, maybe whole of UK it was that time.
That's right. I think it was it was like a safe space, I think, and first of its kind, you know, providing help and advice for women of all walks of life, you know, regardless of their religion, faith. And I guess these kind of projects, they take multiple people to kind of augment together and, you know, throw out an idea and then discuss. And it takes time for these kind of ideas and projects to develop and to go further. But what I wanted to ask you about was, if you can tell me a little bit more about what was the atmosphere like inside Meridian, you know, how many staff were there, you know, and also how, I believe you joined as a coordinator in the start. Tell me about what was the atmosphere like, you know, what kind of things did you do? I know we discussed this once before and you said there was a lot of great sense of social cohesion with, you know, all sorts of festivities celebrated, but tell me more.
It was a center of excellence. It was center for empower women to achieve for themselves. It was a center of cohesion and a center of socializing, education, leisuring, and most of all, it was a socializing center at the first. And slowly we built from there the way I built at the International Flat. Slowly we built with education, we built with the leisure courses, we built the center having great times like celebrations of festivals, which was very popular. The best thing was we built in International Women's Day, started from there.
Okay.
We celebrated International Women's Day, 18 years of it in city chambers in a big way, where city council were helping us. That time, we should not forget, there was plenty of money going around. There were no issues of funding. There were no issues of salaries and all that. It was a large project with a large staff. There were 5 development workers from every community.
Okay.
Muslim, Hindu, Sikh, Chinese, African. There were crash workers, because there was a children crash. Best thing was is a large crash with women's children, because that center was for women with their children to have crash facilities. The best part was there's crash facilities there. And then the women would come register themselves for the courses, because we started with just English speaking courses, cooking courses, and sewing courses. But it developed. I don't know how I had the strength. I don't know how I did it. It developed into a very large unit with courses from education, courses from the colleges, with colleges, tutors from the colleges itself. Everything was paid by the colleges. Everything was paid by education, from the social work, from the city council. Uh, Imagine the salaries of 26 staff.
Okay, so
And
that's
there
a
were
very
8
big
staff
staff.
who were in a very, very good salary, including myself. Then there were crash staff. And then there were helpers who were paid part-time with, with money for their lunch money, plus their travel money.
Right.
Plus women who used to have come to the center for courses and join the courses, they were paid lunch and travel allowances.
So I
Provided that
guess,
was free. There were so much there that I don't think we could have a center like that anyway, here or anywhere. And then the women were from all walks of life. They were all communities. There was never no. And social collusion was so good that everybody was a friend, everybody was sister to each other. The
sounds
atmosphere was
lovely.
very good because of using the celebration of festival, celebrating the International Women's Day in the city chambers. The girls used to learn one whole year sewing and put up a show, fashion show in the city chambers, which was the highlight of the International Women's Day. And the food was another highlight. The council used to provide food from all the communities: Chinese food, African food, Indian food, Islamic food, all food. And it was well looked after. There were people who were Jewish and women who were Jewish, and the food was kosher food also was there. Same with the interfaith work, which I had done at starting at international flat and developed up till today. Interfaith work is too much in Glasgow. Still, it is not that much that we can do, but there's that is living. Even interfaith work is still living here in Glasgow, and it is a big part of my life, and it's next to my heart. Interfaith work.
interfaith work, yeah. So just coming back to, we'll come back to your interfaith work a little bit later on, but just coming back to the sort of Meridian. So I remember you were telling me that every month it was almost like a party. There was some celebration that everybody partook in. Everybody, you know, was part of this big family. You said it's like a sisterhood. So when these women then came in, they came in with their children. You know, everything was fully paid. They learned the skills. You know, what about so I guess these women are feeling very empowered. You know, what happens next? So, you know, did they go on to do other jobs, or were they helped into employment? Was there CV skills? You know, was there also, what else was there in the Meridian?
Like my job was always to look for opportunities. As a manager, then as a coordinator, then I became a director. My job was to attend meetings, look out for things for women, look out the best things they can achieve for themselves. So I had introduced by city council, I had made contract with them that there would be women who were learning secretarial courses would go straight to them. For few months, they will be trained as assistants in their offices and all that. Then there were opportunities, the banks, the women who had built their confidence, the women who were more educated, the women who had degrees and all that were coming up to highlight themselves at the Meridian to get more help from there. They were given jobs in banks, in NHS. That time, NHS were employing Black and ethnic minority women. In fact, they were employing people. And I was looking jobs for them into the hospitals. And there were jobs in the nurses field also. So my work was to find jobs for them. And believe me, I'm not just exaggerating. There were about 16 to 18 jobs every month. People were employed through Meridian for
Right.
some time.
Okay.
because it was hard work to find jobs for them that time also, because community was growing, things were growing, everything was, everybody wanted to work. People were building confidence. Even women want to achieve for themselves. They wanted to go work from the factories, and they wanted to work in better places and better opportunities. So there were opportunities. There were a lot of opportunities. I don't know. It was a time of that time of the century. There were a lot of opportunities, and there were work around. So now when I see them, I meet women who are working in these areas. I feel proud of them, and I feel proud of myself, how lovely they achieved for themselves. And it makes you happy and makes the community happy, because there are women who are around in the community who are really doing very well. So it's an achievement for the communities too.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, for women to feel empowered, you know, especially at that time, because like you said, it became like a hub, a safe space where people, ladies from any walk of life, you know, whether they're starting off or whether they've already got some kind of education or experience. But I guess it was almost like a focal point so people could then, you know, it's almost like a launch pad for them to then go on into further employment and to meet other like-minded people as well. So tell me, Auntie, we didn't actually discuss it. Whereabouts was the Meridian located, situated? And I think you also told me that it expanded. So give me a little bit more information about where it was based.
Right. This Meridian was in Fox Street, if you remember. The Fox is just behind St. Enoch Square. It's a big Enoch Square center. And just very behind the St. Enoch station. And it was a factory kind of thing. It was behind in a lane, Fox Street, 58 Fox Street, if you remember. And then we had a factory upstairs. We were just downstairs first. And imagine, I had a staff, about 17, 18 staff that time. And there were different classes because there were enough rooms there. So there were English classes, there were sewing classes, there were social classes, there were childcare classes, there were studies for nursing, and there were secretarial courses. So we had all rooms there. And we had a big kitchen where we used to cook sometimes because of festivals and things and all that. And from there, when we had expanded so much, we couldn't resist what to do. And luckily, you know, the two upper floors were going to be vacant, and we grabbed them. And City Council was so good; they gave us all the money and all the funds for the rent and all that. So upstairs were all classes then. Downstairs were all meeting room, and some of the staff, crash staff was downstairs because of the crash facilities downstairs. But then we had some staff who were upstairs. So there were 3 floors in Fox Street then. Then unfortunately, after years, after 6 years, the building was for sale and they were going to build flats. It was so much change in Glasgow. There were old buildings were coming down and new buildings were coming up. And that time we had a bit of problem, not a problem. We were lucky enough. We had a place just behind the big bridge, you know, south side and connecting to the city.
That's
And
right.
there
Is
was
it Gorbals?
I think still a Remnant King is still there, the factory shop. Yes. And we had Mr. Sharif was the tenant, and he had a big warehouse there, a big warehouse. His office was upstairs. So we grabbed that. He was very kind to us, and he gave us to very good, very less money, rent money, what we were paying to the council. So we
I guess
grabbed
it was still
and
very central then, you know,
we
for
made it
everyone to have
what we
access.
wanted. Yes, we just developed it into the rooms. We developed it to the big rooms where there were classes. At that time, the computer classes had started because it's a big thing, a computer. We had about 76, 72 computers in a big hall where you used to have 3 classes in a day: morning session, afternoon session, and evening session. And believe me, it used to be full. And all the funding, everything was coming from the colleges: Annisland College, Langside College, and College of Commerce. They were the great helper for organized computer classes. And it was, I think, the best part of the center was then the women used to get jobs very quickly. They were doing the courses, and they were doing ECDL courses. They started with basic computing, then they started ECDL courses, and they started then higher level courses. And with those things, a lot of girls have got jobs in the banks, and which was the good thing for Meridian.
What do you mean by ECBL courses? Is this like a banking certification?
Yes, that's just a 6 months course. ECDL course that time was. The 2 years course was a different, a higher level course was 2 years. There was course for 1 year, there were course for 2 years, which was a higher level courses.
I remember at the time there was around about the sort of late 80s, 90s. I remember Cardano College used to do a 6-month course as well. So I think, because I remember Meridian from that time, and I remember people that used to attend the Meridian Centre, and I remember them coming to this course at Cardano College as well for the banking. So I think it was beginning to highlight the fact that we needed to have more ethnic minority people in both the banking sector and the police, because there was also a separate police course that was running at Cardano College as well. So I guess with the help of Meridian, you know, these things were beginning to take off. So Auntie, tell me, nowadays we don't have anything as big as Meridian, or we don't have that same kind of multicultural, where everyone together. Why do you think that is? Why don't we have that nowadays?
You know, when Meridian was there for 18 years, we had a lot of work, and it was hustle and bustle. It was safe haven for women. It was a place where they could bring their children. They could leave the children in the crash. They were taken very care of them. And then when it was booming, the shock came when the council was in debt and they were closing down the centers. It was just not Meridian Center. They had closed other small projects in Glasgow that time. And fortunately, unfortunately, I don't know, it was a great shock for women, for all of us, when we were told the center is going to be closed. What we thought, because it was a big center, it was a very good center, and the money was not coming from the region only. The money was, I had also developed links with the Home Office, link with the European funding, where we used to get funding for the second project. I had 2 projects in the Meridian. The second project was employment project. All the money was coming from European funding, where we had employed Asma. I can't forget her. She was a very good worker, and she's coordinator. She's working in Glasgow, in Amina, somewhere there. And she developed the link with the employment officers in Glasgow. So the whole money for employment projects, there were 6 of them working in that project, coming from European funding and Home Office. Home Office funding was for people who were coming from abroad, like Middle European women, because they were growing. The city was growing, and there were women from East European countries. They were coming also, so we had to make room for them. So that money, for them to welcome them and to give them some kind of career in their life, we had money from Home Office. There was plenty of money, so money was not an issue. But I don't know what happened. The council took this decision to close these kind of projects. So we, as a women's project, came into that category.
So, Adi, what happened to all the sort of images? Because you would have had, you had all these International Women's Day, like you said, you were celebrating it in city chambers, the big projects, everyone was getting involved. What happened to all the sort of paperwork, the images? Where is that all gone to just now?
Actually, it took a long time to close the center. It did take us a long time. All the computers and things were given to YWCA with the screens and things, because there were teachers involved with them because of their jobs and all that. All that was given to the YCAW when they were in West End somewhere. They have closed even now. They don't have these things. And all machines and things were donated to the churches, to the I don't know, faith centers or something. And all the furniture went to the people who needed them, to the other centers like NHS, like social council and all that. And they all went to there. And the money which was there, so much money, we don't know what happened. Council had taken the money because the money was from Home Office, money was from European funding.
Mhm.
Council had took it, and we don't know what happened to that money. It was shame for women.
Yeah.
Women who had been getting jobs and things. It was a big blow for them too.
Yeah. I think you
Some of them
mentioned
got
that some of
uh,
the items had gone to the women's library as well. I think you said
yes,
they've got an
the big
archive
part, a
of this.
major part of the artifacts and the photographs and
Yeah.
the videos and things are with the Women's Center now, Women's Library. They're holding that stuff. They are going to collate everything. And we had 1 or 2 meetings, but I think the coordinator there is really busy, and with pandemic, we didn't go further.
That's
But
right. It's
they are going
affected
to
it.
put something on to see how the Meridian Center had worked and all that. The
Yeah.
artifacts from the uh, center, some of them have gone to, the faiths artifact have gone to Museum of Art, Museum of Religious Museum, St. Mungo's. The rest of things have gone to art galleries. They had split all this thing to different places. So there are these things, in archive with these other
Different places.
organizations.
Okay. So what I want to actually ask you, Nanti, is we'll come back to your interfaith work as well. In fact, I'll probably touch on your interfaith work. I know that you have a big display of it's like a big collage with like a patchwork collage with fabric with different symbols on it. Different people have added their own kind of colors to it. It's like a sharing of faiths banner, I think you called it. I think that's
Yes.
something that's been is hanging in St. Mungo's Museum, and it's created by women from various faiths. Involved in the interfaith work, and why was it important to initiate it with schools? Is it because of Meridian, or or is this interfaith work something you did after you finished off with Meridian?
Saqib, I don't know how I had that inspiration, because when I was in Church of Scotland project, I started working with interfaith work, and I developed that work. So the banner, which is in St. Mungo's hanging there, that's pride of my women who had to help me. And I pride for faith's work, what we've been doing in Glasgow. And the women from International Flat had done that many years ago. It's been 35 years or something when I came in this country. And that was one of the projects I initiated with help of one of the girls in International Flat. And I don't know where she's gone now. I've forgotten her name. She was very good artistically. She had a very good, creation, and she could do things and all that, very artistic. So we both sat down and we thought we would do and involve the women from different faiths.
Yeah, and I
So
think you
the whole
initiated a
idea
lot of
was,
interfaith work with the schools as well. Tell me a bit more,
yes,
just a little
it
bit,
was
because
all
I'm
involved.
conscious of
See, what
time.
had happened, because I was going to schools promoting interfaith work. We used to get people to go to speak to the schools from Muslim communities, from Hindu community, from Sikh communities, from Jewish communities, from Baha'i communities, Christian communities. So I had to organize, and at that time there was no teaching of faith in schools, and I developed with the faith with the teachers to develop interfaith work in school. There were no exams, there were no classes at all, slowly, because people were so biased, the teachers were biased, they didn't want to involve the other faiths in. And the education, because I linked with the education department, they were so good, they had realized to start working on people from different faiths. And interfaith work was, when I was employed, one of my job description was to develop interfaith work in school. So I had a very close link with the teachers, and we developed that. So we had link with the religious education teachers to develop interfaith work in school. And
do
I
you
believe
feel
now there are exams and all that. It is not so easy. I had to do some courses. I used to go to Edinburgh and Murray House to do interfaith courses in the evenings, to leave my family here, to leave everything and work 6 hours, 7 hours, and then travel to Edinburgh, come home till 11 o'clock at night, and shattered at times and all that with my family, with my husband and all that. But it was great work, and I was young, I could do it. But now I can't do anything, I can't do it.
That's amazing how you managed to balance, your family life and your work life. What did you have to do? I mean, I guess you would have had to be super organized, and tell me more.
I don't know, Saqib. I don't know how I did. I always think there's somebody sitting on my shoulders, on my both shoulders. There must be one, my mother, and one Stella Ricky, whom I worked a little while with her for a year and a half with her. And these people are sitting on my shoulder and telling me, get on, Brij, get on to your life, do something. And maybe I was getting encouraged because my husband had played a very great role. He was very kind and very nice person. So my family, I have got two sons, and they were really nice, and they're really nice even now, very good. And they were, because they had been here well before me, so they knew the entire setup of Glasgow, and they were in school very good. So I had no problems for my family. They were organized. I was organized. You have to be organized. The other thing, you have to have confidence in you, and you have to be positive in yourself. Positivity is very crucial. If you say, I can't do it. So like me, I don't want to use negative words, and I'm not a negative person. And I want my positive voice. If I see there is negative, I just walk away from there. But in your real life, you do have positive and negativity. You do have that. But you don't have to be organized so much. It comes to yourself when you're involved in so many things.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay, that's a lovely answer, Auntie.
Sorry?
That's a lovely answer. I like how you said, you need to be confident, you need to be positive. So it's not just about being organized. There's lots of factors that come in. And I think for some of our sort of younger mums or younger viewers that are watching, that's a really good positive message to send out to them. I wanted to actually just come back to, now I know we've only literally got just a few more minutes left. A couple of other things I wanted to talk about was, firstly, I'll talk about some interfaith work in terms of, do you feel that there's still a lot to do as a community, and should it be the community, or do you think sort of education system should be tackling it more in terms of interfaith? Have we moved on? Have we progressed?
Interfaith is still great on the list. It is top on the list. There's a lot of work is being done by the interfaith group, and it is called Interfaith Work from all over. And then the other thing is, there is a lot of work to be done. If only young people can come up. It's not only women. Women is very crucial for women to do that, but young people should come up, men and women together to work. And the other thing is, we want to do our separate things. If we all forget our identity and get together and do things, that is good. Like in my life, I had attended conferences in South Africa, in India, in Kenya, and all that. I had my children, I had my family to look, but I was away from home many times. And I had to build myself. I was recognized as in a book called Substance of Women in Britain, one of the books. I don't know if you've heard about not that. And it was my recognition, and my MBE has been recognition. If you don't work and all that, you don't have to ignore things. You have to be positive, and you have to, unless you don't work together, one person can't do things.
Yeah, so I guess your message is that communities need to get together and work together to tackle these issues in our community, because we're all facing them, whether it's interfaith, whether it's, racism, or, other kinds of, like Islamophobia. We need to work together to be able to tackle them and educate, the schools, educate the wider community. But I want to touch on, you mentioned your MBE there. I wanted to ask you about, why were you awarded this MBE? What exactly did you do? What kind of work? I mean, other than obviously the Meridian project, was there other things as well? And we've literally only got about 5-6 minutes before we finish off. So
I don't know about Meridian, but my work with the fundraising was top on my priority. It was a top on my list. I used to raise funds for cancer, because I had a breast cancer. I had gone through that. So that time, and I was doing well before that. I had a friend who lost her life and all that. So this work was done with other women and all that. We were raising funds for this, and I raised fund for cancer, plus I raised fund for Alzheimer's that time. And it's not just me, there were other women who were part of me. And it was not in Meridian. I started well before even I joined Meridian, or I joined the other thing. This was my things I was doing beyond my work and all that.
Right. Okay, because I think
the other thing, I had been doing a lot of work with abused women. don't forget an international flight. I had developed that women who were coming from abroad were treated very badly with from their families and their husbands and all that, because they were not working and all. There are a lot of problems in the family because of the extended families and all that. I had developed that. So being working with abused women and having great fun with the children, play schemes for a month, school holidays,
of course,
4 weeks.
yeah.
That was my priority, and it couldn't have been. I couldn't have done with other women who were not even working, who were just mothers.
Mothers,
And
yeah.
I got MBE for my work in the community, plus raising funds for the good cause.
It's a good cause, yeah.
Yeah.
I think
And still
you're
I'm doing that
probably
privately.
one.
I don't make an issue of it. Still, I'm working on with the abused women with the GRIFE. I'm still a director there, and I've got other my projects where I'm director, I'm the chair, I'm the secretary, I'm all these things. I'm still wear lots of hats, but
Wow.
I really, whatever it is, I don't know how I get this strength, how I do it. And I think I've got good friends around, a good community around, I have good people around, I have good family around. My family is a backbone to me. My friends, my sister, and my mother's side, I think my whole family, my daughter-in-laws, they're all my sons itself, and my grandchildren. They're all my
Wow.
backbone too. I love my family. My family has brought this, and my
Sounds
sister.
amazing. You know, you've had a very fulfilling life, and I didn't actually know about the fact that you'd suffered from cancer as well. But I wanted to just highlight that you're probably one of the first South Asian women. I mean, I'm talking about in that era, that time. You know, there were others as well, but you're one of the first South Asian women whose work has been recognised. You know, around about, I think it was 2005 you were awarded this. So I think you're probably one of the first Indian women within Scotland who got this. But of course, there were other South Asian women from other backgrounds as well. And I guess that, you know, you mentioned there that you know, now, I mean, you could easily retire, you know, you could, but I know that you are very much involved, like you said, in lots of other different groups. And I know that during lockdown, you were telling me that you were sewing masks, you were providing them to the NHS group. Just in literally 30 seconds, tell me about some of the other groups that you're involved in. You know,
I'm involved with women's group. I'm involved abused women, refuge. I'm involved with the single women, and I'm involved with my own faith, my Hindu Indian women's group. I'm involved in a lot of groups, and with that, I must end it that if I've got the MB, it's not me. The whole community has got for me. They are the one who has worked with me tirelessly. I still work very tirelessly, and I had been given opportunity to go and visit Parliament in January last year, which was again a really excellent for me. I went, through a women's library, but it was a great opportunity for me to go and speak there about my project, about how I started working in Glasgow and all. On behalf of the women, I'm very proud of the women of Glasgow.
Yeah, no, it sounds
proud.
amazing.
I've got lovely friends around and lovely people around in Glasgow.
Yeah,
not
I remember
the indigenous population, not forgetting it. They are the backbone of the projects I have been doing. You know, unlike if we didn't have help from the indigenous, from the council, from the NH, from the various funders, we couldn't have been nowhere. Because we were all settling here, we were in our teething problems at that time, and we have built ourselves. And I'm very proud of my all women folk, and bless them all.
Amazing. And I know that you're, mashallah, still very much involved in, you know, you're learning Zoom, you're doing all these other projects, you're involved in all your groups. But I just want to thank you, Auntie, today, because we're running out of time now. Thank you for taking out the time and sharing your wonderful story. You know, you're going to the Parliament. I remember that trip because I know my own mother went on that as well. And I think it's just really important to highlight that how many women that you would have helped, along with other members in the community, that you're together, working together, helping other women. That's an amazing, amazing achievement. And I'd like to just sort of finish off by thanking everyone for tuning into this week's episode of Herstory with Mrs. Brij Gandhi. To catch Auntie's full interview, Colourful Heritage interview, check out the link in the description. And please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and tune in next week for the next episode of Herstory.